The unethical practice and dangers of doping in pigeon racing. Pigeon racing is a beloved sport around the world that requires skill, training, dedication, and the natural athletic abilities of racing pigeons. For centuries, pigeon fanciers have carefully bred racing pigeons for traits like stamina, homing ability, and speed. However, in recent decades some unscrupulous participants have attempted to gain an artificial advantage by doping their birds with various substances. Unlike human doping in cycling or running, these drugs provide little to no actual performance benefits in pigeons. However, they enable pushing the birds beyond their natural limits, often causing significant harm. This practice destroys the spirit of fair competition that is fundamental to pigeon racing. It endangers the health of the birds for the sake of ego and greed. Strict bans and vigilant testing for doping substances are crucial to protecting both pigeon welfare and the integrity of the sport in modern times. Why ethical pigeon racing relies on natural abilities. Pigeon racing developed centuries ago out of working birds bred to carry messages. Fanciers noticed that some pigeons were naturally faster than others at returning home after being released far away. Thus began the hobby of timing and racing homing pigeons. The best birds were selectively bred to improve traits like navigational ability, endurance, and speed. Training and handling techniques were also refined over generations. But at the core, success in pigeon racing depends on the natural athletic gifts of the birds. Their motivation comes from the drive to return home to their loft, not understanding of human competitions. Racing reveals the combination of genetic potential and rigorous training in healthy pigeons. Doping destroys this relationship between nature and nurture. Artificially enhancing performance with drugs circumvents the need for superior breeding and care. The innate qualities of the bird no longer matter, only the effects of chemicals. Doping shifts the focus to finding ever more effective substances that allow a pigeon to exceed its inherent physical limits. This may benefit the owner's ego or finances but comes at the cost of pigeon welfare and honest racing. The spirit of fair competition in pigeon racing suffers when birds are simply drug dispensing vehicles instead of admired athletes. History of doping and detection in pigeon racing. The motivation to cheat by doping pigeons has likely existed since the beginning of organized racing. However, modern chemistry has vastly increased the drugs available for potential abuse. Corticosteroids like prednisolone first emerged in pigeon racing doping in the 1970s and quickly spread around the world. Their immune-suppressing effects help mask illness and injury in race candidates. The 1980s and 90s saw narcotics, painkillers, bronchodilators, stimulants, and anabolic steroids introduced. Even bizarre substances like Viagra appeared occasionally. These drugs aim to numb pain, reduce respiratory issues, increase alertness, and build muscle mass in pigeons. In most countries, organized bodies overseeing the sport were initially slow to introduce doping controls. Lack of funding, standardized testing methods, and political will allowed drug abuse to become endemic at highest levels of competition. But by the 2000s, the dangers to pigeon welfare grew impossible to ignore. Cases emerged of doped pigeons dropping dead from exhaustion or organ failure in races, spurring public outcry. In response, national federations began collaborating with scientists to develop effective doping tests. The early days of testing saw some resistance and denial from prominent fanciers used to doping freely. However, positive tests and bans gradually changed the culture. While challenges remain today, a combination of research, education, and enforcement has significantly curbed rampant doping in pigeon racing. Nations with robust controls now aim to share best practices globally. Vigilance remains necessary, but the situation has improved from the rampant cheating of past decades. The health dangers of specific doping substances. The discussion below summarizes the main classes of drugs abused in doping racing pigeons, and the significant health risks they pose. Corticosteroids. Corticosteroids like prednisolone, dexamethasone, and methylprednisolone are cortisone-like hormones that powerfully suppress inflammation and the immune system. In the short term, they can help sick birds recover more quickly from illness or injury. However, long-term use, or dosing near race time, has many dangerous effects. Severely weakened immune system function, making birds prone to viruses, bacteria, fungi, and parasites. Even minor pathogens can become deadly. Adrenal gland suppression, which can lead to adrenal fatigue syndrome over time. This reduces the bird's ability to manage stress and inflammation on its own. Liver damage, cirrhosis, and potential liver failure due to toxicity and disrupted metabolism. The liver bears the brunt of corticosteroid processing. Gastrointestinal bleeding, ulcers, and erosion of the stomach, intestine, and esophagus linings from the corrosive effects of corticosteroids. Redistribution of fat reserves, severe muscle wasting, and thinning of bones. This leaves birds looking emaciated despite potential weight gain. Reduced fertility and reproductive issues. Male birds may have difficulty breeding while hens can struggle to lay healthy eggs and raise young. Feather damaging behaviors, abnormal molting, and poor regrowth of feathers. The skin and follicles are affected. Increased risk of heart attacks, strokes, and kidney failure in susceptible pigeons. These drugs stress circulatory function. These dangers clearly outweigh any perceived performance benefits in races. The immune suppression may temporarily mask illness but leaves birds profoundly vulnerable to breakdown both during and after competition. Pigeons under corticosteroid treatment require careful isolation and rest for protection. Pushing them to race is reckless and unethical. Rather than boosting performance, corticosteroids likely hinder pigeons from competing anywhere close to their natural best. Pain relievers and anti-inflammatories. Drugs like diclofenac, meloxicam, flunixin, and butorphanol are nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory, NSAID, medications or opioid pain relievers used to reduce inflammation and pain in many species. In the short term, they may relieve suffering from injury and allow sick birds rest. However, long-term use in racing pigeons can inflict substantial harm. Severe ulceration, lesions, and erosion in the digestive tract lining, especially of the proventriculus, stomach, and gizzard. This can cause internal bleeding or even perforation. Direct toxicity to liver and kidney tissues as the drugs are metabolized and excreted. NSAIDs in particular accumulate over repeated high dosing. Blood clotting abnormalities and increased risk of internal hemorrhage due to effects on platelet function and clotting factors. Failure to eliminate harmful gut bacteria due to suppressed inflammation. This allows overgrowth of pathogens. Adverse interactions with other drugs. The combinatorial effects are complex and poorly studied. A major ethical problem with relying on pain relief in racing is that injured or ill birds should be rested and recovered fully before further competition. Masking pain with medication enables racing birds that should rightly be healing in the loft. The exertion and stress of racing likely undoes any recovery and worsens underlying problems. Rather than a solution, it is a band-aid fix that hides suffering while enabling further damage. Pigeon racing should rely on healthy, robust pigeons, not masked, medicated ones. Bronchodilators. Drugs like clenbuterol, albuterol, and epinephrine act as bronchodilators that open up air passages in the lungs and air sacs. They are sometimes abused in pigeons to try to alleviate respiratory limitations, often from infections. However, the side effects outweigh any minor benefits. Dangerously increased heart rate, tachycardia, heart palpitations, and arrhythmias that can lead to heart attacks. Birds may already be stressed. Tremors, muscle twitching, and excessive restlessness due to the stimulant effects. Electrolyte imbalances and mineral depletion that can lead to seizures in extreme cases. In the case of the highly toxic clenbuterol, potential poisoning symptoms of nausea, diarrhea, sweating, headaches, and mental disturbances at higher doses. Seizures and death can occur in overdose. Rather than relying on bronchodilators, the ethical solution is to rest and treat any underlying respiratory illness fully before further competition. Pushing sick birds to race is both cruel and pointless if they cannot perform well in any case. Stimulants. Stimulant drugs like cocaine, amphetamines, and caffeine aim to reduce fatigue, suppress appetite, and increase mental alertness by activating the central nervous system. They have at times been abused in pigeons just as in human athletics. However, the side effects reveal why this is unethical. Severe agitation, muscle tremors, heart palpitations, and dangerously high body temperatures from overstimulation. Pigeons are already stressed by racing. Dehydration and depletion of electrolytes and minerals due to reduced drinking and appetite but increased exertion. Imbalances can be deadly. Immune system dysfunction from altered hormone regulation and high stress levels. Birds become prone to disease. Adrenal exhaustion, hormonal disorders, and difficulty regulating metabolism as natural signals are overridden. Strong potential for addiction forming and difficult withdrawal symptoms when the drugs are stopped. This includes depression, fatigue, and altered pain perception. Rather than reducing fatigue, stimulants override the healthy signals to rest. This enables dangerously pushing birds beyond their natural limits. Any perceived edge comes at the cost of both short and long-term health. Anabolic steroids. Anabolic androgenic steroids like nandrolone, stanozolol, and testosterone mimic male sex hormones to build muscle and boost strength by altering protein synthesis pathways. Some pigeon racers have abused steroids for these perceived benefits. However, the dangers are manifold. Liver toxicity and dysfunction since the liver must process the drugs during metabolism and excretion. Oral steroids are very liver toxic. cardiovascular strain, increased heart rate, hypertension, and arteriosclerosis, hardened arteries. Heart attacks become more likely over time. Alterations in natural endocrine function that can suppress normal testosterone production and sperm formation in cocks. Reproductive issues result. Weakened immune function and reduced resistance to pathogens due to the immune suppressing effects. Increased aggression, territoriality and altered mating behaviors that may disrupt loft social dynamics. Natural behaviors are changed. Despite aims of increasing muscle, the overall effects of anabolic steroids leave birds appearing muscular but frail. The cardiopulmonary and immune effects counteract athletic performance. Natural behaviors also suffer at the cost of prizes. The ethics are highly dubious. Antibiotics. Antibiotics have valid veterinary uses in pigeon racing when applied judiciously. However, some fanciers misuse them attempting to compensate for poor loft hygiene, overcrowding, and stress. Excess antibiotic use leads to several problems. Development of antibiotic-resistant strains of bacteria and fungi that can pass between birds and even humans. These superbugs can cause stubborn infections. Imbalances in the natural gut microbiome, allowing some pathogenic strains to proliferate once antibiotic courses end. Digestion suffers. Increased opportunistic infections by viruses, fungi, and protozoa since antibiotics cannot treat these pathogens. They benefit from reduced bacterial competition. Liver and kidney stress as the drugs are metabolized and excreted from the body. Toxicity results over time. Frequent antibiotics encourage ignoring underlying management and hygiene issues rather than fixing them. They also mask covert illness in birds who should be resting, not racing. Antibiotics do not improve performance and should not be abused. Combinations and other drugs. Illicit compounds evolve to evade testing and laws. This leads to dangerous combinations of multiple drugs in some doped pigeons. Mixing of stimulants, steroids, analgesics, and hormones is not uncommon. The interactions between substances can lead to potentiation of effects in unpredictable ways. Masked, medicated ones. In addition, any drugs not specifically approved for use in pigeons constitute unethical medical experimentation. The hazards of medications designed for other species are simply unknown. No competitions are worth jeopardizing lives in this manner. The precautionary principle must prevail. Why doping has no place in true pigeon racing. The above discussion illustrates the dangerous effects of many doping substances in racing pigeons. The health risks are clear and multifold, while any perceived performance benefits are nebulous at best. So why do some fanciers still dope their birds? This question has no easy answers, but some contributing factors are below. Ego and obsession to win. Pigeon racing unfortunately attracts some participants with an excessively win-at-all-costs attitude. They become obsessed with acclaim and financial breeding value of champion birds. Ethics fade before fear of losing face or nest eggs to rival lofts. Doping emerges from desperate attempts to guarantee victories, regardless of the cost to birds. This mindset must change to shift the culture of racing to value animal welfare over human egos. Peer pressure. Newcomers to the sport may feel pressured to dope their pigeons just to be competitive with established handlers and lofts known to enhance performance pharmaceutically. They convince themselves that everyone is doing it to rationalize joining in the cheating. Veteran fanciers must set a better example and organizers must level the playing field for ethical competition to be rewarded again. Laziness and impatience. Doping is often seen as an easy shortcut to improve performance compared to the long hours and dedication of superior training, nutrition, and loft management. Some handlers grow impatient with natural methods and turn to chemistry for a quick fix. But well-treated, healthy pigeons excel without doping. Financial gain. In some nations, the breeding value of champion pigeons can be incredibly lucrative. Even average racers from elite bloodlines can sell for thousands. This financial incentive fuels doping of potential superbirds that can make owners rich. However, rumors of doping often depress sale values over time as the sport declines. Addiction and habit. Long-time dopers often continue simply due to familiarity and addiction to drugs that may have improved performances decades ago. They become scared to compete without them, even as testing improves to catch cheaters. Banning these handlers for set periods can break the cycle and reset healthy competition. Rationalizing cheating. Doping culture feeds justification narratives like I only do it a little bit or it's not harmful in moderation. Some falsely claim drugs mimic natural hormones or nutrients. But any doping violates ethics, and most pills quickly spiral into excessive misuse. Clear anti-doping rules and attitudes must prevail. In summary, the motivations are many, but favor greed over pigeon welfare. Vigilance and education are still required to promote the ethics expected in the modern sport. But with care and honesty, pigeon racing can thrive as a fair test of training and natural abilities. The consequences of doping on birds, competition, and perception. The impacts of doping spread far beyond just the individual birds exposed to drugs. The effects ripple out to corrupt fair competition, endanger public health, and ruin the reputation of pigeon racing as a whole. The consequences across these areas necessitate strong anti-doping efforts. Harm to bird health and welfare. The obvious victims of doping are the birds that suffer significant health problems discussed previously. Exerting already sick, injured birds affects racing performance and can even lead to breakdowns and death during competition. Survivors often require extended rehabilitation. Doping leaves lasting damage to organs, immunity, hormones, and fertility after its short-term masking of symptoms. Bird welfare must come before any race results. Corrupted and meaningless competition. Doping strips any real meaning from competition results between fanciers. Races become no longer about nature, nurture and training ability, but access to drugs and willingness to use them. The drugs overwhelm any natural factors. Victories ring hollow as essentially chemical wins rather than true tests of pigeon quality. Public interest and trust fade in such artificial contests. Differential access based on wealth. The ability to dope birds adequately depends largely on the finances of owners to procure a wide spectrum of drugs consistently. Poorer fanciers may lack funds to keep up with wealthy pharmacies with a loft attached. This introduces socio-economic imbalance that further undermines fair competition. Leveling access to healthcare apart from doping is important. Risk of transmission of drug resistance. Some fear that antibiotic-resistant bacteria and other pathogens could spread from doped pigeons to human owners or even poultry and migratory birds. This would expand a dangerous health threat. While the risks are debated, reducing doping would promote judicious drug use and lower hazards. Reputation damage among the public. As the negative effects and distortions of doping spread, public attitudes turn against pigeon racing being seen as an irresponsible and shady hobby that abuses animals for gambling purposes. This reduces new membership and support. Restoring perceptions depends on cleaning up the sport to highlight positive community aspects. Erosion of trust and relationships in the sport. The culture of doping also corrodes relationships between rival fanciers, clubs, and national federations. Accusations of cheating and tip-offs to testers create an atmosphere of suspicion and animosity rather than community enjoyment. Healing these divisions may take generations after deep wounds. In summary, the consequences of doping cut much deeper than any short-term race victories. The effects ripple out physically and socially to undermine the entire sport over time. Protecting the future necessitates strong anti-doping actions today. Effective anti-doping controls and enforcement. With growing recognition of the harms of doping, pigeon racing federations have taken increasing steps to control the issue through testing, bans, and education. While challenges remain, progressive best practices are emerging across nations that make doping more difficult. Some of the most effective policies include: surprise testing at key events. Predictable testing allows cheaters to evade detection by briefly going clean before races then resuming doping untested. But surprise visits by testers at races, sales, exhibitions, and even lofts keeps dopers uncertain if this day is the day. Fear of the unexpected curbs routine abuse. Get my main racing system, just email me direct. I'm an experienced ex-pigeon racer from England, and I can offer valuable insights and guidance on all aspects of pigeon racing, from breeding to racing. During my racing days, I managed a small team of no more than 70 pigeons, including stock, young birds, and old birds. It was not uncommon for me to send as few as 6 birds to a race and still secure the top 3 positions out of up to 2,500 pigeons in my club and federation. My race distances typically ranged up to 300 miles, and I consistently achieved top 5 placements in my club. My expertise extends to the art of selecting excellent breeders, including evaluating pigeons based on their eye sign characteristics. I firmly believe that true champions can only be bred from top quality stock, and I can guide you in identifying and acquiring such pigeons. I understand that many pigeons for sale are advertised based on their lineage or pedigree, but I emphasize the importance of assessing the bird itself rather than relying solely on paperwork. As part of my offer, I invite you to share photos of your pigeons, including their eye sign and wing characteristics. I'll provide you with free advice on racing and breeding based on my extensive experience and knowledge. Additionally, I will share auction links to high-quality breeding birds that have the potential to produce winners in your loft. Here's what you can expect to receive from me. A comprehensive Word document containing valuable insights and strategies for successful pigeon racing, including specific racing methods for both old and young birds, as well as general advice. Private YouTube videos sent to your email, covering various aspects of pigeon racing, from breeding to race preparation. Detailed recommendations on supplements and additives to add to your pigeon's drinking water, with scientific evidence supporting their effectiveness. Similar products are used by professional athletes and racehorses to enhance performance. Assurance that your pigeons will race home faster, provided that you have quality birds to begin with.